Okay, good morning, brothers and sisters. We're going to take a look at something I've been hearing a lot about lately. It's big in the Christian sector, which isn't where I discovered it. It was just kind of on a side note there. Some videos I saw that this star Betelgeuse was gonna blink out, or wink is the word that I'm coming up with. Wink. Yes, I know the proper pronunciation today is Beetlejuice, which is after a stupid movie. But years ago, it used to be pronounced, to my understanding, Betelgeuse, and I believe there was an actor called Betelgeuse, which is one that I actually prefer. It's of course found in the shoulder of the constellation of Orion, which according to Arabic ancient traditions was actually a female archer, not a male. And she used to have this long string of hair with stars wrapped in it, and some speculates that those stars wrapped in her hair was actually the Pleiades. So certainly the constellations over time has really changed the picture of the true story. And we're going to take a look at the word blank. My mind went to blank. It's Betelgeuse is supposed to be, what's the word? The occultation of Betelgeuse by 319 Leona, which is an asteroid, and Leona means the white lioness. Ariel means lioness of God, not lion. Eri is lion. And El is God. El is feminine from all studies in the Old Testament. But we're going to look at the word blink and blink and wink and what this actually might be indicating or not indicating. I just found it interesting. So we're going to go to a verse found in Acts 17:30. This is the verse. It says, "In the past, God overlooked such ignorance, but now God commands," not he. You were never to have a he pronoun in there. You were never to have an idol of a man before. You were going to look at how this all connects to that, because this is it. In the past, God overlooked such ignorance, but now God commands all people everywhere to repent. Repent of what? You've been given a set period of time to repent of a religious lie and idol in the land. So we're going to go to interlinear, and we're going to look at the word having overlooked. Okay? Acts 17:30, we're going to look at 5237. To overlook. I overlook. I take no notice of. I disregard. I disregard the time of ignorance. I will overlook this time of ignorance. I will take no notice of. I will not attend to it. I will overlook. I will not punish this time of ignorance on condition. Wink at. I will wink at this time of ignorance. That's blink, right? In the blink of an eye. A wink, right? So let's go back. And what's ignorance here? 52. What ignorance? Ignorance. Come on, you can do it. My camera tends to stutter at times. I think it's high usage. These new computers do not have, that's for sure. I apologize for a bad video stopping and starting. There don't seem to be anything too much I can do about that. The number is 52. Ignorance, it's a feminine noun. Ignorance. Inadvertence, sometimes with the idea of willful blindness. Down we go. Want of knowledge, ignorance. Properly, the quality of ignorance. So the time of ignorance, God winks at, overlooks it. So this time of ignorance, we know it has to do with Exodus 20, the violation of the first command, which was, what's this first command? We'll go up here, Exodus 20. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness, neither male nor female. What do you got in the land? You got a male idol of Jesus. That's what you got. That's the idol in Daniel 2. And you are not to have any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Oh, but we do have an idol standing, do we not? It's a male idol. So what time of ignorance? We also get this verse. All right, you parallel it here. Romans 13:11. What does it say? And do this, understanding the present time. The hour has already come for you to wake up from your slumber. That's open the eye. Because our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed. We identified our salvation as being washed in water. We found that in Isaiah 55, verse 1. Buy the truth and sell it not. Buy the truth means believe. It doesn't mean to purchase it with blood. Isaiah 4, she says, I'll wash the blood off of my daughters. This is the time of ignorance that God winks at. We find, where is it? Okay, where was it? Yeah, it was, sorry. Let's go back to, and we'll look at the word God here. God commands us now. God. What's God? They stick the he pronoun. They have no right to stick the he pronoun. It's 2316. Noun feminine, noun masculine. God properly, God the creator and owner of all. And they got it he. They got the feminine first for a reason. That's the God you denied, right? You were to make neither male nor female. We found them in the Old Testament actually making both male and female. Then we see the king. God says, you did not want me. You wanted a king. And here in the end, you say, God is a king? God is not a king. God is feminine and masculine. And the God you denied was your creator who gave life to you. We find her in Isaiah 29. You turned everything upside down and you told the potter she had no power over the clay that she creates in her own womb. And my daughters in end up are bowed down at the feet of a male idol, which is the time of ignorance that I'm going to forgive. You come to the water freely and you wash that blood off of yourself, my dear daughter. She says, how can I take your part if you won't even stand up for yourself? If you're too busy bowed down at the feet of your husband, preaching him as God, how can I ever take your part? And there's a complaint in Job, I was reading it last week, where she complains and she says, why should I stand up? You're never going to take my part. It don't matter what I do. I'm always going to be found to be in the wrong. God says, no, stand up for yourself. Take your part. Otherwise, it's going to be nothing but bloodshed in the land. They're going to write the law the way they want. And that's exactly where we're at, where women's bowed down at the feet of a male God, saying he, and they won't take their own bloody part. They go silent. God says, there is none that calleth for justice in the land. And she's talking to her daughters. Where are you to stand up for your rights in the land? You're letting him take everything, including your children, from you. And she goes silent. God says, how can I take your part if you go silent? And then we find her finally standing up. What does she say? Long time have I held my peace. Long time have I been silent. Now will I go forth as a travailing woman, and I will lead you in pathways that you have not known. That's the parting of the Red Sea here. So here we got God as feminine, masculine. They have no right to stick the he pronoun here, but they give themselves all the permission because the woman's bowed down at his feet and she's Baal, which is a wink at. So she's overlooked this ignorance, this time, and she's told everyone to repent now. You're repenting, you're supposed to be repenting of having an idol in the land. That was the first command, to have no other God before you. You stuck a male idol in front of you. You tore the female one down, and the kings began to exalt self, which is why you get the idol in Daniel 2. So repent here to change one's mind or purpose. 3340, I repent, I change my mind, I change the inner man, inner woman, inner spirit, particularly with reference to the acceptance of the will of God. So when we go to Romans 11, we get this, and we have this understanding so easy. We did a video on this. Romans 11 was the passages here. What does it say? I gotta go back now here. So, what does God start out in this chapter? God is trying to tell you something. If you'd bother to order your conversation right, God will show you the way of salvation, the truth. Few wants to order their conversation right, such as God is he. We have male and female in the image of God. And then they say, he made us in his image, and say it's a triple male Godhead that made male and female, and you reason that out. That's not ordering your conversation right. God then tells you you are without excuse not to understand my Godhead. I manifested it in what I created for your eyes to bear witness to, not for a made-up man God to write behind it what he's telling you it means and interprets it his way. You'd understand with your eyeballs. Who gives life? It's woman who forms the clay in her womb. Then you told the potter, the maker, the creator, that she had no power over her own creation, what she makes in her womb. We know the law was to be mother's law that governed the land. We know the sons turned on the daughter that was given covenant. Even Job testifies to this. Job 30, Job 31, verse 1. I made a covenant with mine eyes. Why then should I think upon a maid? For what portion of God is there from above? He's telling you the wife, the spirit of the original covenant, who was denied. She became the outcast that no man sought a covenant with. We know the presence of God was identified as the camp of Mahanaim. We find them with the Shulamite also identified as she-goats, which is then why the Genesis 15:9 covenant becomes so important. We get 3 animals, the heifer, the she-goat, the ram. Then we get 2 other animals, which is your dove, your turtle dove, and your pigeon, which is female is your turtle dove, male is your pigeon. So we're getting 2 covenants identified in Genesis 15:9 when God says you split the first 3 animals, you lay them each to one side. Then you do not split the turtle dove feminine or the masculine, and you place each one of those to one side. So we're getting a masculine covenant, we're getting a feminine covenant in view. The masculine covenant begins to hold bloodshed in it as he turns on her covenant, and hers was a covenant of water. Over time, as God, the presence, these daughters led the nation of Israel out of the land of idolatry known as Egypt. They parted those waters, which was an admixture of doctrine. Your Red Sea is allegorical to the admixture sitting upon your table that you drink from. We're going to hit that here in Romans 11 in a minute. But she parts that water, that admixture of doctrine, which is why we get her saying, long time have I held my peace, now will I go forth as a travailing woman. I will destroy and devour at once. I will lead you in pathways that you have not known. When she parts the admixture of doctrine, which is allegorical to the birthing canal, she's delivering her children out of the land of idolatry, which is in why we also get the witnesses who had died in the land of Egypt. Yeah, their testimony, the men were rejecting the testimony of these witnesses known as the daughters of Israel. They no longer wanted them in covenant. And anyway, when she comes out of the land of idolatry, she parts the water, she divides the admixture, which is the wine on the table, which is why you bow to a man as God Baal. And over time, the admixture comes in and covers over the pathways of the presence of God, and you no longer saw her pathway. Which is why then she says, long time have I held my peace, now will I go forth. And I will lead you in a pathway that you have never known. The truth, the pathway of truth. And I'm going to open up my gate. That's right, gateway of truth. And deliver my children into truth. So she comes out of the land of adultery, which is Egypt, which is also why the witnesses in Revelation are found dying in the land of Sodom in Egypt. It's not Sodom and Gomorrah anymore. Gomorrah means rebellious people, and it is a feminine now. It becomes Sodom and Egypt, a land of idolatry, bowed down at the feet of a male idol as Lord and God. So when we go to Romans 11, we get this. So this is telling us the idol that ended up standing in the land, which was male. Daniel 2. So Romans 11, verse 4. But what saith the answer of God, 2316, mother, father, unto her? I have reserved to myself 7,000 who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. The time of ignorance God winks at. We went to sleep according to that, right? That blink also put us to sleep in a time of ignorance, which was bound to man as if he was our head. I don't have a head, a male head. I have a female head, which is also representative of my mother head, which you see this ritual playing out, a male head with a female body with a male head. I'll get it. And we see that. And they're moving to try to remove woman's right under the law. She's not allowed to exist, don't you know? Not female with a female head. It always has to be a female body with a male head, which makes absolutely no sense. God says, to those who will order their conversation aright, who will ask the proper questions, I will show the true salvation of God. Which takes us to Isaiah 55, which is the water. You are free. You are free to come and take. All you need to do is buy into it. It doesn't mean purchase with blood. It means to believe it. And you are free to take of my waters. You take of my waters, dear daughter, and wash the blood off you. Isaiah 4:4. You are free to take of these. Just believe the truth. I can't take your part if you won't even stand up for your own house. If I can't hear a voice speaking out and crying for justice in the land, that would be woman taking her own part, standing up for her own house, finally, the house of God, and asking for justice in the land. If I can't hear that and you remain silent, how can I possibly take your part? You have to stand up in defense for yourself, for your house, and for your children. Otherwise, he's going to take your rights from you, like he claims he's allowed to do, and he's going to put you under all that bitterness in the law system that's going to come back on your head. So God tells her and warns her, what you create in the land will come back upon your head. So if you are found bowing to a male idol, that's all going to come back on your head. And we've proved that it did come back on the woman's head. They cut away her rights. They cut away. They say, we're one. No, we're not. They know you're a woman. They won't give you rights. The she is not included in that. So they distinctly know you're different from them. You're not one in the land. They like to preach that you're one. They hate your guts. They cut away your rights. They took all your goods from you by taking away your rights, telling you that you're not even a person under that. And then they hand it all back over to a man in a dress. That's what they do. So God says, I have reserved to myself those who have 7,000 who have not bowed their knee to the image of Baal. Baal was the solar calf deity come straight out of the land of idolatry known as Egypt, which then comes solar calf deity, another name for it. It comes into standing as the image of Baal, which is another name for your husband as Lord and Master, right? Which ends up following them right into the land of Israel, their own holy land. It becomes severely contaminated. When we saw Balaam and Balak going after the women inside the nation of Israel and going after the contamination of the woman's seed, the plague that broke in upon her was Baal worship, idol worship. So even so, then at this present time, also there is a remnant according to the election of grace. So we have a remnant here in view. What's this remnant? And what's the election? The elect. So, and if by grace, so the grace that we're talking about isn't blood. That's not what forgives you. The grace is that she's willing to wink at it and forget about it. I'm not going to punish you for this ignorance of bowing to a male idol. What's going to be punished, what you're going to be punished for is when I send the truth and you don't believe it and you continue to bow in those laws that man created so he could bring on bloodshed in the land. When you have the choice to stand up and to fight against that, and you refuse to do that and believe into the truth that I made you equal under those laws, and you refuse to stand up for your own house, then you will be cut away. You bring that on your own head. God says, what you believe you will bring back upon your own head. While women bowing to man as if he's her head and a Lord and God has brought nothing but injustices of the law system upon her own head. She refuses to stand, but then she finally does. In Isaiah 42, we get, long time have I held my peace. Long time have I been silent. Now will I stand up for my own cause, and I will deliver my children into the truth. So what does the Lord say here? Even so, at this present time, also there is a remnant according to the election of my grace. I'm willing to forget this. I'm willing not to punish it. I'm not going to punish you for chasing after a man as if he was perfect. And it says they get caught up in their own lusts, their own desires, these wicked women who believes man is God. They got caught up in their own religion. But those who can pull themselves up, her preserved ones, who are strong enough to pull themselves up from this religious lie, she is willing to blink at. So what then? Israel has not obtained that which it's got he. Israel is identified as the woman seed, she. Seeketh for, but the election has obtained it, and the rest were blinded. So we get a stupor here in the next verse, but we are going to look at the election here. Who's the election that she's pulling out? All right. The election, I think it's here. It might be the next verse. I may be in the wrong verse. So the elect among them, right, did obtain it. Those that she elected to the truth. So elect here is 1589. A divine selection. We're selected by God. We're not selected by man. Man will never select a woman for anything. She's supposed to shut her mouth and listen to his head. I don't have a man's head. I have a woman's. A choosing out. A selecting choice by God. Noun feminine. She's choosing us out. Those who are strong enough to stand up from the feet of an idol. And she will wink at the time that you were ignorant, the time that you went to sleep in a religious lie. Obtained here will lead you, I believe, to the word birth. I attain, I obtain, I acquire. Also, the idea is to obtain it by knowledge of the truth. To chance upon, to obtain, I think it is this word, eventually. Happen every day, to hit upon. We hit the mark. We're hitting the mark. We're hitting the bullseye. I had a dream about that. I spoke on that in a video a long time ago. To hit on, to hit the bullseye, hitting the truth. There we go. I bear, I bring forth, I produce, I beget, I yield. So when she finally hits on this truth, hits the bullseye, she brings forth her children. Bear, birth, born. This is obtained. This word obtained will lead you here. It means to hit the bullseye, to hit the truth. Finally understand what the truth is, and then to bring forth your children, to obtain your children. Give birth to, labor. All right. So it's a woman's seed. It's she, and she's finally giving birth to her firstborn daughters, her first fruits. They are the chiefs of the kingdom because they are holding the truth, and she chooses us out. But understand that's kind of a two-way street. You're chose once you choose to stand up and order your conversation aright. And when you start to ask those questions, she's going to hear that voice speaking out of the dust of the earth. I hear a familiar spirit as of one who's speaking out of the dust of the earth. She's hearing her daughter once again with her truth. So she's obtained the elect here. And we go back, we keep reading in Romans 11:7. It's going to tell us some other interesting things. According as it is written, God hath given them the spirit of slumber. Yes. Eyes that they should not see and ears that they should not hear unto this very day. But she's pulled out an elect, the elect, female. These are your first fruits of the kingdom. We find the camp of Mahanaim with the Shulamite, identified as she-goats. That Genesis is important. You violated the first command, which was to have no other God before you. you stuck a male idol in the way and said that was God, and the women bowed to that and totally forgot about their own head. And you told the potter she had no power over the clay. As it is written, God gave them a spirit of stupor, eyes that they could not see. So, it's a spiritual stupor. We get that. They go to sleep in that stupor, right? It's a spiritual stupor. We'll look at that, but we'll look at this word right quick. Sorry, I can't talk. If it can pull it up. So stupor is 2659. Stupefaction is the word. And it's not pulling it up. Yeah, it's not responding. So we're going to have to go back. So it's 2659. Stupefaction. The noun is feminine, and it's a willful ignorance of the truth. And so God chooses out an elect group of women who pulls himself up from the feet of the idol, who were in violation actually of the very first command, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. We know in the Old Testament they made a male and female. The kings tore the female idol down, left the male one standing. Which is why we have the statue in Daniel 2 as a male, and all the kings building upon this idol of a man. And God says, and do this, understand the present time, the hour has already come for you to wake up from your slumber, because our salvation is nearer than when we first believed. So when we went into that, I meant to look up, what was it? Sleep. Sleep. It's figurative of a spiritual sleep. So the daughters go to sleep in this spiritual sleep, right? And they did it for thousands of years, which is the time of ignorance that God winks at. Can we identify maybe how long that time has been? So I asked a question because we're also going to get the word wink or blink in a strange spot. Let me see here if I got the right. Okay, I think I do. Okay, so we get it in this strange spot in Judges 9. Well, I still don't have it there. Where is it? Yeah. Okay, I apologize. Sorry for this. Okay, so we do find it in. Do I have it pulled up? Okay, so it's not there. So we need to pull up a new tab if my computer's going to be able to do it. And we go to Judges, I believe it was 9. And I had asked a question to the computer because Judges 9 is a pivotal chapter in understanding where we all went wrong in our faith and our belief. Has to do with Gideon battling this covenant. And berith is the Hebrew word for covenant. And we're going to get two here in covenant. We're going to get Baal, berith, in covenant with El, which is your female god, El berith. So Baal berith was supposedly in covenant with these women who were willing to bow down to Baal as Lord and God. And this is all in Jotham's parable, which I'm still currently trying to break down. It's not so hard. But the interesting thing here is verse 8. When you hit the word trees, the trees went forth. One day the trees went out to anoint a king for themselves. God said, you didn't want me, you wanted a king. And they said to the olive tree, be our king. Well, we can go on into that. But the interesting thing is the word tree here. Trees. It is 6-0. Let me see here if it's going to pull it up. Trees, wood, carpenters, who was supposed to build a house for the true living God, ended up creating an idol in the land. Right? So when we go to trees, a tree, from its firmness, that also leads us to other things in how this led to. So trees led us to 6095, ATSA, after you hit on tree, hit on its derivative, 6095, which means to shut. Yeah, to shut. The word tree leads to shut, to close the eye. Close the eye in what? In ignorance. You went to sleep in ignorance. And it's interesting that the covenant in view in Judges 9 is a covenant of Baal-husband, with these women willing to bow down at his feet and make him Lord and God. That's the time of ignorance that God winks at. And how long ago was that? Well, I just did some weird things. I asked this question. So the times of ignorance has been about, according to this time, 3,500 years. So question, what year did Judges 9 of the Bible take place? So this is, remember, it's so important to understand Baal's covenant with El-Berith. Berith is simply a word meaning covenant. So we have Baal, husband as Lord and God, and El represented the daughters as God's presence. All right. Now we know what happened. King Solomon changes the portion in the midst to a harlot spirit. So he literally changes these daughters over from the key of David, who were righteous daughters, to the key of Solomon, who are harlot daughters willing to bow at man's feet. Now we know that they used violence to perpetuate this covenant. We see this in the Old Testament. We also see those daughters who stood strong in God's covenant, true covenant, as making themselves a prey under the law, and the men were coming after them, and they were violently killing them and removing that covenant out of the land so that it could no more be in remembrance. And so these women will never take their own part. They're bowed down, to which God says, how can I ever take your part? You won't stand up. You won't open your mouth because he silenced it for you and you're dumb enough to believe it. So your stupefaction is a word there. When they go to sleep, the word is stupefaction, and they went to sleep in absolute ignorance, but it was also a choice that they made to do it. And God's willing to wink at that time. And so the question was, what year did Judges 9 of the Bible take place, in which we find the covenant of Baal-berith with El-berith? Most scholars place period of Judges between 1450 BC and 1000 BC. The precise dates are still debated. The events of Judges 9 occurred within one generation of Gideon's overthrowing the Midianites, which was found in Judges 7-8. So when you take, we'll say 1450 with 2023, and you know what? You're going to get a total of 3,470 years. So then I asked this question, what year did Genesis 1 take place? So it is believed to have been written between the 5th and 2nd century BCE. Though it describes the creation of the world, it does not provide specific dates or years, because they'll tell you they have no way of knowing how long Adam and Eve were actually in the garden before they fell. So therefore, they can't really tell you when. So therefore, it is impossible to determine the year. But if we take 5,000, the 5th century, no, we won't do that. So we're dealing with time frames here. And we've got this 3,470 years. This time of ignorance, God has winked at it, right? And we get it all in context to going to sleep with these trees who were looking to anoint a male god, a king over them. And God says, you didn't want me. Remember, noun feminine, noun masculine. You wanted a king. So you turned your back on your creator the one you denied, had any power or understanding over the clay she literally forms in her very own womb. And you removed her rights. And the women who were dumb enough to go along with this won't stand up for themselves. They will not stand up. God says, I hear no one calling for justice in the earth. But then at some point she chooses her elect out to come to the waters and to wash the blood off of them. You're not washed in blood. Man don't wash you clean. He's not your head. He never was. God says, I'll remove the name of Baal off of your tongue, and I will give back your vineyards unto you. Isaiah 54:1. Covenant. And the married wife there is identified as Baal, which is these women in Judges 9, Elbereth, that were in covenant with Baal to bow down to him as head and as Lord and God. So the time of ignorance that God literally winks at is this time of idol worship as man as God, Baal, husband, Lord and God. We see the witnesses died, and it's a warning to us again in Revelations. We saw the witnesses die literally in the land of Egypt. We see the witnesses in Revelation literally dying in the land of Sodom and Egypt. So God is trying to indicate to you that what we became contaminated with came out of the land of Egypt, which is why we get the Red Sea and allegory, this admixture of doctrine sitting on the table. So let's go back to Romans. All right? Because this is important to understand what you're contaminated with. Come on. Okay. So Romans 11. So she's showing us what contaminated us. We see 7,000 unwilling to bow to the idol of Baal, husband as Lord and God. We got the image of Jesus standing in the land, who is your bridegroom, rescuing his bride. Nope, that's a lie. You were to have no other God before you, and you made a male idol. You made male and female, but the males made sure to tear the female one down, and the females went along with it in this time of ignorance and went to sleep in it. And then she chooses to wake us up, those who order our conversation aright and are strong enough to remember that truth, that God would never put a foolish man over a woman saying he's your head and you need to obey him. God says, I'm waiting for you to take your part and to stand up for yourself. So what does it say here? According as it is written, God hath given them the spirit of slumber. That's the spiritual sleep that you go to sleep in. We get the eye winking here. That's what this is all indicating. Eyes that they should not see and ears that they should not hear unto this day. So what does verse 9 say? So I've been it's not David that says this, it's actually the daughter that says this. She says, let their table be made a snare and a trap and a stumbling block and a recompense unto them. So what sits on the table if it is not the admixture of doctrine? And God says, after I parted the Red Sea, the presence of God identified as the daughters inside the nation of Israel, also referred to as she-goats in your Genesis 15:9 covenant. After the presence, and it was the daughters inside that nation known as the presence of God that was given covenant to teach man the laws of heaven. After she parts that Red Sea, the admixture of doctrine, your wine on the table, it comes back in and covers her footsteps over. So she says, you did not see my way. So she says, long time have I held my peace. Now will I go forth, and I will once again part those waters. And I will lead you in pathways that you have not known. And I will deliver my children into truth, which is your rising up of the first fruits, rising up and stepping away from the idol of Baal as if he is your head and Lord and God. He's not. He don't deliver children. He never could. Why now do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips as if he can give life, as if he's in travail to deliver children, which is then why you empower Father who gave life to everything. Father, don't give life to everything. You denied your mother who was the potter who gave life to the clay. Emet means truth. You take the E off and you will remove the truth and bring on death. EM means your mother that you denied, who gives life to the clay, who will deliver the children. Instead, you choose to drink this admixture of religious lies and laws. And in that covenant of Genesis 15:9, we get three animals. We get a heifer female. We get a she-goat female. We get the ram male. Then we get two other animals. And that is your turtle dove female and your pigeon male. These two animals were not to be parted in the midst. Why? The first three was to be parted, and each was to be set off to one side. But the turtle dove and the pigeon, neither one were to be parted. One was to be set to one side and the other to the other side. Why? Why female to one side? Why male to the other side? If it is not identifying two covenants, right? One of blood, the man covenant, and one of water, the female covenant. But the presence will come up the middle and will part the truth. That's the sword of God. The sword of God is the word off your tongue. We saw Baal the archer firing at the branch, the daughters, as they passed over David's wall. They had their own gateways, and we see Solomon walling them up and bringing harlots into the land, which is the same thing that was going on in the Exodus. After they came through that Exodus out of Egypt, Balaam and Balak sends the harlot daughters from their own nations that knew these religious lies and laws in to seduce the men in the nation of Israel so they would turn away from their own right hand, which was the daughters, the presence of God on earth. Yes, that's what took place. You denied your creator from the very beginning, and she turned her back, especially on her daughters after they began to bow. But then we're told this time of ignorance, she winks at it. She's willing to forgive it. She's not going to punish it. She's going to wash it, this lie of blood, washing you clean. She's going to wash it off of you with the truth. She says, buy the truth and sell it not. You know what buy means? Doesn't have the idea of purchase. Buy has the idea to believe. Look it up. Buy has two meanings, one of which is to believe the truth. The water is what washes you clean, not man's blood, which is man's covenant, right? That you bowed down to. She's going to forgive you if you're willing to pick yourself up from this lie and order your conversation right. To those who orders their conversation right, ask the right questions, the deeper questions, such as this don't make no sense. There's male and female on planet Earth, not three males running around. Male and female is made in God's image, which is 2316. Female in male. The female was called the Almighty and exalted God, and it was her law that was to rule the land. The fathers were to exalt that law, and they chose not to. They said, hey, we're not going to build that house. We're going to create a harlot that'll bow to us as Lord and God. And here at the end, God is a king who made everything. Really? You didn't want me. You wanted a king. Order your conversation right, and God will show the salvation to you, the truth. I will wash the blood off of my daughters, Isaiah 4:4, and it is her daughters that she is speaking to. And here you have the admixture sitting on the table that they all wanted to drink. Let their table be made a snare and a trap and a stumbling block and a recompense unto them. The glory says in Ezekiel, she takes Ezekiel's head and she pulls him up by the tuft of his hair and she shows him what's standing in her gateway. And you know what's standing in her gateway? Is an idol, an image of a man as Lord and God. She also gets mad at these harlotry images that they were making. I think it was dirty images these men were creating of females. And that was eventually part of their process of tearing the woman down and making her nothing more than his harlot. We see her getting drunk on this admixture of doctrine. They were putting this admixture to her lips to get her drunk on this religious lie, put her to sleep in it. In Habakkuk 2, verses 15 and 16, it says to him so they could expose his nakedness. It was her nakedness they were exposing. They wanted to make her their harlot. And so let her eyes look upon Zion, let her be defiled. And that's what they were moving to do. They wanted to defile the woman so they could accuse her in the heavens. So Adam, King Solomon, who took her throne, who exalted himself to her throne, in the midst of the sea, in the midst of the people, so he could accuse her and say, well, no, she wants my law, or she won't even stand up for herself. Look at her. She's down saying women don't deserve rights. Just to be obedient unto your husband. He's your head and ruler and all that crap. That's Baal. The religious lies of Baal. For anybody who wants to order their conversation right, this don't make sense. There's male and female. And the God that spoke was female and male. 2:3:1:6. Let's make them in our image. Let's create children in our image, female and male. And then in the end, they say, He, Father, made everything created life. Oh, He did He? If the tabernacle below reflects the one above, man didn't create life in his womb. She creates the clay, forms and shapes it. But then you told the maker, the creator, that she had no power over the clay. And the women went along. The wife Baal went along with it all. But we find Baal shooting at these branches. Again, in Genesis 49, we found them shooting at these branches. These daughters. God says, I'm going to take a new branch out. I'm going to wake them up to the truth. The ones who's actually asking questions in their heart. Who am I? And you, God. If He's my head and God is a he, and I'm the one that gets to take all the crap on my head, it's not making sense. It don't reason out. And it's to those that she will show the salvation to. Come drink of my waters. They're free. You need no blood. Blood don't wash you clean. Come believe the truth of my words, and I'll wash the blood, the lie off of you. And you will eat freely of the food of heaven. That's what she tells you. And yes, God is female and male, but you denied the female. That's what you did. Your first fruits are identified as female and as the chiefs, the rulers, the leaders. That's because the law was supposed to come off her tongue. You weren't to exalt her, in a sense, though you were to make an idol and bow down and worship her, but you were to follow the way of God, which was to come off of her tongue. And she was denied. So I'm sorry I rambled through that. I tried making this once and I actually got interrupted. It was much, much better the first time. So I apologize for that. But this was all in connection to the word blink and wink. They tend to want to look into the heavens and keep going, Baal, Jesus is Baal. Instead of looking at the word wink or blink and try to understand what God is trying to tell you. Understand, you're an elect one. When you order your conversation aright and seek for the deeper truths, God's going to show you the salvation, the truth, not the religious lie in the land that has woman bowing at a king's feet. He didn't want me, God says. He wanted a king. So it's sort of you do see this. You see a young girl who thinks she's in love with a man and she'll run after him and traipse after him and do whatever he wants her to do. And that's kind of what went on here. She was a lot younger than him, is the understanding. In her, even though she's ancient, this daughter was young when she was given covenant. And so she of course he took steps also in great violence to remove that covenant of the land. So I mean, we studied all of these angles. Oh, and look at my cup. I blinked my cup up. I know, and no big deal. I just thought you might want to see it. I'll hold it for a second there so you can see it really good. It did cute. It actually stays on. I washed it up and it actually stays on, so it's pretty cool. And I didn't have to glue it. I just stuck it there. Anyway, I'm sorry. Foolishness. But anyway, there's your video on Betelgeuse, not Beetlejuice. They can say Beetlejuice all they want. It's just another way of empowering their religious lies and in stupid movies, and it's all ritualistic, but God is trying to tell you something. To those few daughters who have actually managed to order their conversation right, even the sons who have picked themselves up from the feet of this idol of Baal, she's telling us, I'm not going to punish you. I winked at your ignorance because you went to sleep in this religious lie. So it's high time that you awoke out of sleep, God tells you to, which is a spiritual sleep, that stupor that you find in Romans 11. It's high time for you to wake up out of that sleep. Let's read it again. And this knowing the time, that it is the hour already for you to awaken out of sleep. It's time. That's what that wink is about. It's time. And the constellation of Orion, like I said, was identified, in the ancient Arabs, viewed it as a female. We know that God silenced her covenant, so she could no longer fire the arrows, which is the words. And she silenced that covenant. We find that in Psalm 7. If I didn't say it on this video, I know I said on the other, so I get a little mixed up. So sometimes I end up repeating myself because I don't remember what I said when I said it. But we know that she silenced her covenant and she goes silent until the end. But we know that her bow, her covenant, remains strong until the very end. She chooses to awaken us, and there's words in there that lead you to the idea of remember, remember, remember my covenant. Remember your God, your creator. You forgot your creator in the days of your youth, but you went to sleep in this religious lie. She wakes us up. She washes that blood off us. To those of us who are strong enough to stand and recognize that this is not the truth, but a big fat lie. So forgive me if I haven't said what I was supposed to say there. Anyway, that's the video. Again, I apologize. It was much better the first time. I got interrupted. So anything I forgot, I might tag it underneath like I usually do. And this is something that I need to address. I have written so much under videos that even if you don't want to watch my videos, you don't want to give account, like so many of them don't want to even touch my videos, go read what's underneath them. It might cause you to order your conversation aright. God's choosing out her elect ones. She's winked at our ignorance. Thank God. Thank God for that. The true living God, not the made up one, Baal. That's Lord of Dung. Another name for that is Lord of Dung. Anyway, we've studied that, we've looked at that, and God also says, I'll testify to this truth myself. I wrote that one down. It's Jeremiah 29:23. I'll just read this and we'll end right quick. So Jeremiah 29:23. For they have committed an outrage in Israel by committing adultery, idolatry, with the wives of their neighbors and speaking lies in my name, mother's name, which I did not command them to do. I am she, they got she who knows, and I am a witness, declares the Lord. That's in Jeremiah 29:23. So we are the daughters that she elects to this truth, and we are the witnesses that do not die. In the land of Egypt, we hold to our truth. And there we go. And we know that the women that they were taking in covenant was these serpents that were coming in, identified as the ones that were biting and poisoning the men with a religious lie that was tickling their little ears, though it was wormwood in the gut. It was actually poisoning us and killing us all. And then God says, whoever looks to this scepter with this serpent, which is a representation of wise women in the nation of Israel, will live. You look to my wise ones. This is my scepter. This is the way that I rule. These are the daughters that I rule through, not the harlot that come in and bit you, which was the contamination of the woman's seed. Like again, I could ramble on and on. I won't. So anyway, thanks for watching. I pray the Lord blesses you with an abundance of truth. Again, we'll look at the study of wisdom in January. I'm giving myself a certain amount of time to prep for it. Not that it's going to make it a good video, but we'll try to be prepared for those 4 chapters that we intend on taking in January sometime. So that'll be chapters 13 to chapter 16, and then we'll do 17, 18, 19 following that at some point. I just hope to be done wrapping up this series of my wisdom study in February. Sorry it took so long. There's just so many other interesting topics to speak on along the way, and I think we need to fill those in here and there as we go. And this one just kind of caught me, and I had always known that verse, the times of ignorance God winked at, and you can't help but wonder, well, no, what does that mean? Most people go, well, what does that mean? I wonder. Well, I know what it means. Instead of actually going in and studying the words and trying to address it by ordering our conversation right and asking God, we'll ask man on a pulpit and he'll explain it through Baal. Jesus, he'll explain it through Jesus. So anyway, thanks for watching. Pray the Lord blesses you with an abundance of truth. And I thank you for watching.